I read 10 books in the 12th week of 2026, so let's go over my thoughts and ratings. I only own one of the books, and it's the first one that I'll be talking about. How to Survive in the Woods by Kat Rossenfield follows Emma, and she was raised by a doomsday prepper, so she knows how to survive. So when she finds herself in an abusive marriage with this guy named Logan, she befriends his ex Taylor, and together they decide they're going to go on a trip to the Appalachian Trail because, well, bad things happen there all the time. This is a story of revenge and redemption, friendship and survival. It dives into some heavy themes like the intricacies of being in an abusive relationship, emotional manipulation, power imbalance, control, and of course, deception. I love when a story is set in the wilderness, and pairing it with one of my favorite tropes, revenge, I was totally locked in. I just love a story of a woman taking her life back, and albeit this was an extreme version, but the series of events felt like realistic to me. It kind of felt like we were in the mind of a woman who would later retell her story on a true crime documentary. It's had a lot of emotional depth to it, and I really connected with Emma's character. I thought she was very relatable, and it was just easy to understand why she was making the choices that she was. This was full of suspense, it was thrilling at times, and I really loved it. Although I was able to guess some of the twists throughout this book, I overall felt very satisfied with where this book went, and I enjoyed my experience reading it. I rated it 4.25 stars. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier is available on Kindle Unlimited, and this was chosen for me to read by my friend and fellow book talker Sonia. This is a classic mystery that many modern-day thriller mystery books have used as inspiration. It follows an unnamed FMC who gets swept off her feet by this guy named Maxime, and he is a widower and he lives on this countryside estate that the unnamed FMC moves on to, and she quickly realizes that a shadow is cast over this place by Maxime's late wife, Rebecca. I read this as a buddy read with my friend Madison, who is also on Book Talk, and you should also be following her. And we shared very similar sentiments about many aspects of the story, though I think that she enjoyed it a little bit more than I did. This is a historical fiction, though it wasn't at the time it was written, but it's an old book, and it does feel like an old book. This is a story of betrayal and hidden pasts and protecting one's image. I really appreciate the foundation that this book laid for so many great books that I love today. Madison and I were both talking about how if we read this back in the day when it was first published, it was probably absolutely mind-boggling and groundbreaking. I can totally appreciate this book and appreciate what it led to in this genre. That being said, this book was not for me. I think that it leaned a bit too much into the mundane details, and the FMC is just totally spineless, which of course I think makes sense because of the time period that it was written. You know, there was a lot of misogyny back then, not that there isn't now, but women just didn't stand up for themselves like they do nowadays. There's also a bit of a narrative switch that I didn't really appreciate. It kind of felt like the author was trying to make us root for the wrong team by the end, and I don't know, I just was not appreciative of that aspect of the story. Ultimately though, I am glad that I read this even though it wasn't for me, and please don't be mad at me, but I'm rating it 2 stars. Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark was chosen for me to read by my friend and fellow book talker Brandon. This is a horror novella, and in the story we follow Maurice and her resistance fighters, and they are hunting demonic Ku Kluxes. These are clan members that have turned into literal demons. This is brutal, visceral, heart-pounding, gory, but also comedic at times. It had me locked in and on the edge of my seat through its entirety. It dives into the heavy themes of the systematic racism of America, oppression, and the power and resistance. This was a quick read and definitely one you can read in one sitting. I have no critiques of this book. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. It's as amazing as everyone's been telling me it is. 5 stars easily. Ein Hollow by Tim McGregor was chosen for me to read by my friend and fellow book talker Madison. This is a gothic novella that is a retelling of the classic Frankenstein. It follows Agnes, who lives on a small island in a village called Ein Hollow, and outsiders are not really a thing here. So when this wealthy man shows up and moves into an abandoned cottage, everybody is really shaken up by this and really intrigued by him. Agnes is struggling to provide for her family, and her husband then forces her to begin working for this strange newcomer. Unbeknownst to him, this decision will forever change all of their lives. Just nothing like an isolated small town setting to really set the mood, and this one's atmosphere definitely sucked me right in. I was very into the moodiness of the atmosphere. It was absolutely brilliant. While this book does dive into heavy themes such as societal pressures and the sacrifice of motherhood and bodily autonomy, it was also somehow charming. Darkly whimsical, if you will. Easy to read, a good unsettling time that I really enjoyed. I do wish it was longer, and I rated it 4 stars. The Last Time We Drowned by Saratoga Schaefer publishes on June 2nd, and it follows a bookstagrammer named Charlie who gets invited to be a part of an influencer colony that lives aboard a luxury yacht house known as Empress. But when a hurricane hits, communication is cut off, and things start to go downhill very quickly. there is an unaliver on the loose, bodies begin to drop, and secrets begin to be revealed. This is a psychological survivor thriller. It is very fast-paced. It is so easy to binge and fly through. It was very entertaining, and there are a lot of messy characters. While there are definitely some dark things that happen in this story, I think that it's a great palate cleanser from some heavier reads. I literally just remembered that right after I finished this book, like literally 30 minutes after I finished, the ARC actually showed up on my doorstep, so I do physically own this one. It was just in my book mail pile, so I forgot about it. Anyway, I picked this up in participation of the Trans Rights Readathon, and while you can't read it because it doesn't come out until June 2nd unless you have the ARC, I do think Saratoga Schaefer's books are excellent to pick up to participate in this readathon. Overall, I had a really good time with this. While I didn't connect with a lot of the characters, I still just thought this was entertaining and definitely think you should check it out. I rated it 3.75 stars. Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher just came out. I did have the ARC on NetGalley, but time got away from me, so I didn't read it as ahead of time as I wanted to. This follows Sonia, and she is a scientific illustrator, and she gets offered a job in the North Carolina woods at this manor owned by this guy named Dr. Hayter, who has a vast insect collection that he wants Sonia to illustrate. But very quickly, Sonia realizes that this job is way more than she ever expected. The animals in the surrounding woods act very strange. There are whispers amongst the locals of blood thieves, and Dr. Hayter is implicated in some monstrous experimental things. Content warning for bugs. A lot of bugs. The last time that I read a book with bugs like this that really got under my skin was Itch by Gemma Amor, and this one was much worse. Also, content warning for animal cruelty, death kind of stuff. I know a lot of people definitely like to know that, so just letting you know. This book explores the dangers of taking scientific discovery to the extreme. Power imbalances within a professional relationship. Trauma and resilience. It's full of dread, it's ominous, it's dark, it's creepy and crawly, it's suspenseful, and it has some haunting imagery. Like most T. Kingfisher books that I've read, it does blend some fantasy in there, but I will say it was more digestible than some of her other books that I've read. Like the Twisted ones was a little bit too fantasy forward for me, but yeah, I thought this one was digestible. Overall, I had an uncomfortable good time with this book, and I rated it 4 stars. The Paris Rental by Rachel Curie publishes on March 31st, and this is a debut psychological thriller. It follows an actress named Brooke, and she decides she's going to rent a place in Paris to hide from a scandal that happened in Hollywood. But very quickly, she realizes that this place has some dark secrets and that she may be in inescapable danger. This is a darkly atmospheric, gothic psychological thriller with the Paris catacombs playing a part in the story. While I'm not a fan of the rich people behaving badly trope or stories that center around wealthy people, and there is a wealthy family in the forefront of this story, I feel like I was able to mostly look past it because it wasn't like in your face in the way that I dislike, like for instance, the way Succession is. That's like the best way for me to describe the type of rich people in books that I don't like, especially given that the FMC is not a part of this wealthy family. This book reminded me of the vibes of The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley, mixed with the vibes of Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. So if you like either of those books, I think this one will be for you. I enjoyed this read. I thought it was easy to read and fly through. It was twisty and engaging, and I thought that the FMC Brooke was easy to root for, and I definitely look forward to seeing what this author does next. I rated this book 3.5 stars. And lastly, You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight by Kaylin Bayron was chosen for me to read by my friend and fellow book talker, Kelsey. This is a YA horror, and this follows Charity, and she is the final girl at Camp Mirror Lake, a place where Charity and her crew recreate scenes from a classic horror movie, and people pay to be a part of it and be scared. But one day there's a shift and the fake horrors become a reality. This is a fun, fast-paced, campy slasher. I had a really good time with it. It's sapphic and really entertaining and just super easy to fly through. It's not that long and you can totally read it in one sitting. Lots of dark secrets, a haunted past, and this one definitely kept me on my toes and kept me engaged throughout its entirety. And while it's campy and fun, it definitely gets more sinister at the end and definitely had my heart beating really fast. This is great. I really loved it. I rated it 4.25 stars. Thank you so much for watching. Now please leave me a comment and let me know your favorite book that you read last week. My favorite was Ring Shout by P. Jelly Clark.